Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Crime Stories. This is episode number 8 with Mike Hinrichs, one of the most highly decorated detectives in NYPD history. He had over 200 department citations, but in that were what are known as line medals. And Mike had 2 combat crosses, which is almost unheard of, and totally unheard of is to also have 2 medals of valor. So he was quite busy out there on the street, working the streets of Brooklyn. And today we're going to talk about not only Mike's career, but we're going to talk about a unit called anti-crime. And I'm going to have Mike uh, tell you what the duties are of anti-crime, how they work, and why they're so important in a city like New York to keep the crime down. Anyway, I'm your host, Bill Cannon, and I'd like to now introduce to you retired first grade detective Mike Hinrichs. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you, Bill. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you're a
And
frequent flyer.
hello, everyone listening or watching or both.
Well,
Okay.
would you tell our audience, describe to them what is anti-crime?
Okay. Anti-crime is a precinct level unit made up of some of the most highly motivated, active street cops in the command. We would drive around in unmarked cars, often disguised as livery taxi cabs in Brooklyn, and we were in plain clothes. We were not undercover police officers. Everybody pretty much knew who we were, um, but we did have an advantage, being the fact that our car was unmarked, and by the time they realized that we were on the scene, a lot of times it was too late. We basically were out there to suppress and deter violent street crime, people carrying guns, doing armed robberies, gangs, shootings, and stuff like that. We were out there to patrol. We were off the radio, so we didn't have to answer 911 jobs. And our job was to go out there and look for bad guys carrying guns.
And Mike, before you went out, say you were doing a 4-to-1, what type of preparation did you do before you went out to the street?
Well, we would look at 61s, complaint reports, seeing what trend was, what areas that were hot. We were, in contact with the squad, the precinct detective squad, that made it give us a heads up. We had a little shooting, over at 5-4 in Church. We're expecting a retell any minute now, that type of stuff. So,
And Mike, I love you using the NYPD slang like a retal. That means retaliation to our
Yes,
people in
right.
Scarsdale, New York.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so the squad would tell us, hey, they give us, hey, we're looking for so and so, we're out there, or this spot's hot, or the rip guys the robbery guys would tell us, listen, we've been getting hit commercials, down in this area. The precinct was pretty much divided of different areas within the command. We had
So
the area.
you're an educated cop. You don't go out there half baked, not knowing what's going on in that command. You know
No,
who you're looking for, right?
right. We had an
And you may
idea,
even bring some of the 60 back in the day. You may even bring some of the complaint reports with you to
yes,
or
we
make
did.
copies of them. Now technology has raced ahead more.
Yeah,
They have those
we didn't
phones.
need technology.
You didn't
We
need
just
it,
talked to each other and communicated with each other,
which is so important, right?
as well as our version of community policing, which was speaking to good people and store owners and getting a little help from them. What was going on? People would, knowing the type of work we did and when we were effective, people would be very responsive to us for the most part. Good people.
Okay, so what do you think for now, and not, I mean, to get too political, because we both know how important anti-crime is. In the long term, or even in the short term, what do you think the effects of not having an anti-crime unit will be in individual precincts, and then even in the bigger picture in all of New York City? What do you think the effect of not having an anti-crime unit will be?
I think slowly things are going to creep back to when it was when I first started. Um, you have to look at the whole picture and realize that there has to be some sort of line. Everybody's got these flags now, thin blue line. Do you really know? People really know what it means? There's people out that live in these neighborhoods that have high crime that need us there, and and want us there. Um, so I mean, that's an important thing. I think, although we had a lot of crime when I first started, by the time, I had left anti-crime and went to the squad, you could see the numbers going down. Another thing I noticed that when I got into the squad and worked in the robbery unit and later in homicide, um, how many crimes that we prevented.
Yeah.
You realize, you go to a scene of a homicide, you're wondering, how did these guys get from point A to the homicide scene? If somebody would have pulled them over, this would have never happened. If somebody would have stopped the guy on the street carrying a gun, maybe he wouldn't have got pissed off when, at something stupid and just pulled out a gun and shot somebody.
Mike, that's what I don't think the politicians and some of the other folks who are pushing this police reform understand. I think it's in the state of Virginia. They're now banning cops from pulling over a car because they have
Yeah,
an equipment problem. I mean, how ridiculous is that? Because when you look at the psyche of a perp, if he has a car and a headlights out, he's not going to get it fixed. He's a mutt. He's a criminal.
right,
You know what I mean? And that gives the police reason to pull that car over
right.
and to get a little more intrusive. You got a license? No. Got a registration?
Now,
No. You have
a
insurance?
lot,
No.
and a lot of crimes are committed by people who travel by motor vehicle.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a stick up or a drug rip, or a drug deal, or just to go give me a ride over here so I can shoot somebody. I mean, that's how people get around for the most part. And the thing is that the people that are making decisions, said the politicians and the people that cry the loudest, aren't the people that live in these neighborhoods. You never
No.
see them. They're not. They're the people, like I said, who realize that, you know what, I'm better off with these guys out there. The only winners in this thing are the jokers out there carrying guns.
Yeah.
The good people in the neighborhood and the cops. Nobody wins with this stuff. I mean, it's the perception. Not only, you figure a good person. How would you feel if you're a citizen and you call the police because somebody's running down the street with a gun and the police just drive by, or they don't put their hands on the guy?
Yeah.
How would you feel if like I said, you're a 911 call and the police just don't do anything? How would you even feel if you're a perp carrying a gun and the cops just wave at you when you walk down the street? What kind of
You're pretty
feeling?
damn emboldened, right?
Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to say, oh, nobody respects the police anymore. Nobody respects the police anymore. But what's your idea of respect? To have everybody love me? No, that wasn't it. You want to be a formidable adversary. Want
Absolutely.
people to that line between me and decent people is important, and not everybody realizes that. I don't know. It's
Mike, one of the things that we always, or at least I always harp on this show is it was such a huge thing when they changed jumping the turnstile from a theft of service misdemeanor to a civil matter.
right.
That took so much authority away from the police to the point
Yeah,
where why would they enforce a civil matter? Or to get the person is going to get a summons and they're not going to show up in court anyway. And chances are the city's going to dismiss it anyway.
right.
And what jumping the turnstile gave them was something, as you know, search incidental to lawful arrest, right?
Right.
You jump the turnstile, okay, now I got a free toss because you just broke the law. You're under arrest. I've searched
Right.
incidental. And where were they recovering? Guns, right? Because
Yeah.
people that are carrying guns don't pay their fare.
Oh, well, why would they? Why would anybody pay their fare now? That's what I like to know. And that's the sad part of it is, sad part of all this is that, you know, it's like anything else though. You look at, you're driving down, there's a sign on the road that says, 55 miles per hour, right? Um, People don't drive 85 because of the sign. They drive 55 because there's a trooper on the cloverleaf that's going to give them a summons and
Right.
make them pay.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
that's the whole basis of this thing. So there has to be a perception that, hey, if I'm carrying a gun, I got to watch out for the police. They're going to stop me. They're going to search me. They're going to find this weapon, and I'm going to go to jail. When you don't have that, it's total lawlessness. It's terrible.
Well,
There
even
has to be
could you
something.
imagine? Could you imagine some of the people that you arrested back in the day for a gun, and then you see them the next day out on the street because they were released because of bail reform.
Yeah, no, that's another ridiculous thing. I mean, it's just a breakdown of civilization to me. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I mean, just think about that. No bail. No jail time. Not even getting stopped to begin with. So even if you do get arrested, which is probably on a fluke, I guess these days, you'd have to sort of like, you know, get arrested by accident, so to speak. Sad to say. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, why though? It just doesn't make any sense. And the good people in these neighborhoods are the ones suffering,
Yeah.
and it's very sad,
Well, I had spoken to someone who runs the New York City boxing program for kids, Pat Russo, and he was saying, without mentioning names, that a lot of these people that voted on the city council for the diaphragm law didn't even realize what the hell they were voting for. And
No, that's not surprising.
now that they did the damage, they're like, how can we undo this?
Yeah,
Well, you probably can't. It's going to
yeah,
have to take a lawsuit and legislation to,
right,
and the state has the same stupidity, you know? I mean,
yeah,
when you think of like the elected officials, do they ask anyone in the police business? What are the ramifications if we do this?
No, I mean, and even ask the people, when you're in the neighborhood that you represent, they wouldn't do that. They look at their agenda and they're going to turn around and say, oh, look what we did. And, people that don't live in these neighborhoods are going to make the rules for the people that do. I mean, it's ludicrous. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, it's funny that, and I quote her a lot. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Maki Haberfeld from John Jay, who's definitely a friend of the police. She was an Israeli police lieutenant, and she teaches at John Jay. And she said, in regards to like community policing, she said, why should the community be able to tell you how to do your job? And I mean, that makes so much sense. What other profession does the community get to tell the profession, we don't want you doing it this way, we want you doing it that way?
But that's not really what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a partnership. Okay, if you're a good person that owns a business or lives in the community, you have a partnership with the police. You don't tell the police what to do and what not to do.
Right. In a perfect world, you're right, Mike, but it's become that. It's become
Right.
the community telling the police what they want. I mean, you saw the shooting just the other day that's causing these riots in Philadelphia, right?
Yes.
It makes no sense. The guy was running at cops with a knife. And
Yeah.
then you get elected officials taking the side of the perp against the
Right.
cops.
When everything has failed that person up until that day, from the person's own family to the education system to the mental health system to the school and the criminal justice, everything's failed that person. They've failed that. Those very people, those politicians, failed that person and the family. But guess what? People like that, there's thousands of them out there. They're not in jail. They're not in mental health facilities. They're out there. They're living next door. You see what goes on in Manhattan and places you never saw this kind of stuff before, and you see what goes on. I mean, everybody, it's tragic. The man lost his life, but you know what? A cat's got 9 lives. He probably had about 900 lives leading
Yeah.
up to that day.
Well, you talk about the old chicken, which came first, the chicken or the egg, and in this instance, is this guy mentally ill because he's a criminal, or is he a criminal because he's mentally ill? Or all
Yeah.
criminals have a certain level of mental illness because they're usually abusing drugs, usually abusing alcohol.
Right. I mean, if you're on medication, you take PCP instead. I mean, whose fault is that?
Right, right.
I mean, I don't know. It's tragic. It's sad, and it doesn't look good. But what's the alternative?
Well, the alternative is a lot of additional bad ideas,
Right.
like violence interrupters that are social workers. Let's bring them to violent situations where someone's off their meds and has a knife or has a gun. Let's bring them. You think they're going to be more successful in de-escalating a situation than trained police officers?
Right. I mean, put in Philadelphia, someone with a PhD that's a psychologist or psychiatrist in the back of that radio car and tell me what would have changed.
he would have been running away.
That
That's what it
person,
would have
probably,
changed.
the man who died has probably been in front of psychologists and psychiatrists 100 times before.
Right.
And what happened? Nothing. It's just a revolving, door of just going here, yeah, dusting them off, putting them back out, and then in the end, it's the cops' fault.
Yeah.
Nobody takes responsibility. The family, the person himself, any of these politicians making all the rules. What about the neighbors that called 911 on them and have to deal with this every day? What about all that?
Career criminal, and
Yeah.
I used to teach criminal justice. I taught it at a college for 10.5 years, and there was a one of the books we used on corrections. I taught a course on corrections, and it was making an argument that someone who commits 3 felonies shouldn't be considered a career criminal, because if a regular person has 3 jobs, that's not considered a career. I
Yeah.
just didn't get the correlation to that.
Right. Okay.
How
Yeah.
are you comparing someone who's on the straight and narrow working jobs with someone who's committing 3 violent felonies and comparing the word career
Right.
with that? It just, no,
And
some of
when you
these
say,
ideas are just so outrageous
well,
that,
when you say, committing 3 violent felonies, no, he was arrested for 3 violent felonies.
right. How
And I
many
don't
did
think
he
he was
actually
in
commit?
church the rest, he was in church the rest of the time, you know what I mean, or at work. That's the thing. We get caught up, in saying things like, well, he only got arrested, this once or twice, but how many times, did he do things and didn't get caught for?
Yeah,
I mean, you got to realize that to be a career criminal, you have to try. You have to consistently go out there and do bad things. Anybody can wake up and make a mistake, but there's special people out there that go out and prey on other human beings,
absolutely.
for whatever, anything from rape, robbery to murder to drug dealers that for profit. There's people out there that are just need to be in a different place other than your next door neighbor. I
Yes,
mean,
that room at Coxsackie or Elmira or in Attica
hmm,
or at Sing Sing
perfect for
is
them.
reserved for them.
Sorry, but that's where you have to be.
Yeah.
And there's just no way around it. I don't care how crowded the jails are. So what do? We put people like that in motels now? Is that the answer?
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I know.
The Upper West Side, which is one of the most affluent neighborhoods in New York City, and by the way, one of the most liberal, they're now screaming bloody murder because they're loading these hotels
Right, yeah,
with mentally ill and people just released from Rikers Island,
yeah.
and it changes the whole neighborhood. People urinating on the street, going through garbage,
Horrible.
wandering around, intimidating people, and and the police at the same time you're taking the teeth away from the police.
Right.
You're taking all their tools away
Right.
that they used to use to be able to deal with these problems.
You would think that if it's happening in places like that, or places where some of these politicians actually live or go, that they would even look at them and say, listen, we can't have this. It's just too far. It's too much now. It's one thing when it happened in Brooklyn or the Bronx or, up in, upper Manhattan, but when it's happening in, high class places now, oh my God, I mean, the horror of it all.
Well, something, Mike, when they start coming back from their second homes in Montauk and the Hamptons and up in Woodstock and places, all these other
Yeah.
places, and they start coming back to the city after this COVID thing's over, you're going to see them screaming bloody murder at what their neighborhoods have become.
Yeah.
Maybe some of these community members will support the police so that their politicians will realize the error in their ways and maybe try to make some changes that support the police. So
No.
this is really what we got a little bit off on a tangent here, but I really wanted for you to talk about, your
Yeah, no, like
crime
I said, I
career.
think it's everybody lose. Even the cops lose. You know how it is. The anti-crime is like a promotion without taking the test.
Yeah.
It was a great gig. It was fun. It was exciting. You did great work. Guys were self-motivated. The camaraderie with all of us. We went to each other's weddings. Our wives were friends. My kids grew up calling my partner uncle. That's how it was. And it was a great incentive for guys that wanted to become detectives or move on to some sort of investigative or even become boss. They had that background. It was really important stuff. It was good stuff. And now what? It really is a morale killer for the cops, the active cops that want to go out and do good things and work hard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is a unit on the police department, or was a unit on the police department, that prepared you better for being a detective than anti-crime, because you made all types of arrests: guns,
Yeah.
robberies, burglaries, rape arrests,
Yeah.
GLAs, right?
Yeah.
Assaults. You made all types of arrests, and most of the time you made them with your eyes,
Yes.
through observation. You watched the street, you know,
Right.
you watched someone's behavior. You watched them walk into a side street following somebody.
Right.
Self-initiated stuff that you learned on the job. But
Yeah.
you did get taught by senior members of anti-crime or the
Oh
board,
yeah, without a doubt,
right? They
Yes.
passed that on, but now there isn't that. There's no one in anti-crime, so there's no one to pass that type of legacy of learning how to work in
Yeah.
plain clothes on to the new
I don't know.
cops.
And I don't know how you get it back.
Well, I think they're gonna have to cave, and well, when they get rid of this idiot mayor, who's just a parasite,
Yes.
uh, maybe the next mayor will say we're going to bring back anti-crime.
Yeah.
But
I can only hope.
you know what they'll do? They'll just name it something else. That's the way the police department does something.
Yeah.
Tactical Unit 1, Tactical Unit 2. They
Yeah.
won't name it anti-crime because that'll be a bad.
The
That's
special unit headquarters that came up with all the acronyms and different
right.
pile of brass, didn't even know what it stood for and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I know.
I was joking with someone today that teaches the de-escalation of force training. We said, let's put community affairs, the borough guys, and the academy people together. They can come up with the solution.
Yeah. Okay. But there's a thing called the real world out there. I guess forgot about that. Minor detail.
Yeah, well, they have all these feel-good units, and it drives me crazy when I see cops dancing, cops singing. That's,
No, that's great
that's not a
stuff.
cop, man.
Right. But the store owner would rather you have out there protecting him from getting robbed, other than telling him to lock his door at night and leave a light on and hand him a coloring book to his kid.
Right.
There has to be the police out there. Yeah, that all that other stuff's good stuff. It has its part in the scheme of things. But you have to have the police out there.
Well, I remember even in the 90s when they first started what was known as CPOP. Remember that?
Yes.
C-pop. And the CPOP cops would be taking kids to Yankee games as the radio would be rocking. And you'd be like, we can use them here, And they're at a Yankee game, drinking a big tall boy beer with the Precinct community,
Yeah, no, that's great. But, what about what's really going on, And you know what? A lot of people, they don't really like we're the police. They're not, and we are. So,
right.
It's
well, these days they find arrogance in that. We say we're the police. I mean, the famous and well-loved Captain Tunnock. I'm sure you heard of him from Manhattan North. That was his favorite expression. After all, we're the police.
Yeah.
Say that all the time.
Yeah, you may not like it. You don't have to like it. But we arrest people. We write them summons. We tell them what to do and what not to do at times. And people don't like that, but it's the way it is. You know what? People grow up differently. Maybe they grow up, they're worried about their mom, their dad, their big brother, the school teacher, the football coach. They're worried about the priest in the neighborhood or whatever. The neighbors are going, they're worried something deters them from doing bad things. But there's those people that don't have any of those deterrents.
Well, Mike, absolutely. And something, there is a whole area to have interaction with cops. Not every cop is a warrior on the street, let's face it.
Right, I understand that.
But there's people that go out there, and I'll mention it again. I don't know if you know him, Pat Russo, who started the NYPD kids and boxing program.
Right.
Fantastic program, man.
That's great stuff. I agree. It's great stuff.
And up in the 3-4 precinct, a guy named John Moynihan started the baseball league up there in Washington Heights.
Right. Yes.
And they have like tremendous success stories in how they got involved with these kids in the community. Some of these kids have come on I think Fausto Pachado was the chief of patrol. I think I think he was one of those kids.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
it is
you
great
have
stuff.
these tremendous success stories, and that at that level, that's where you do need the community to be friends with the police, to help the police, to
Yeah.
report things
And
to
that,
the
and
police.
it's, that's very important, but you still have to have that element of police to deal with the unreachable, let's say.
Yes, I
Okay.
think they
And
say
to
what, like less
protect
than
people from,
10% of the job are arrest oriented, right?
right.
And the rest are pushing that 500 million pounds of paper that you guys generate,
Yes.
right? And the overtime slips and all
Right,
that other
right,
stuff.
right.
So why don't we get into your anti-crime career? You wrote me a little blurb here, and you got into the 6-7 precinct in 1986 and anti-crime in 1989. Tell us about the 6-7 precinct in 1989.
1989, it was a very busy place. We probably did in the neighborhood, in the area, about 60 murders, 300 shootings, and several thousand robberies during that time period in that one command. We were, like
Per
I
year,
said
you're
earlier,
talking per year.
per year, yes.
Yeah, per year. I
And
mean,
we were not confined. For the most part, we were in that neighborhood.
right.
Which, like any other neighborhood in the city, has smaller like neighborhoods within it.
Right.
This section is called the East 90s. This is the 50s. This is the Vanderveer, whatever. There was
Is
different
there a
sections.
lot of housing developments in the six
There's
seven?
none,
None.
none.
And
It was all,
what is the makeup ethnically, racially in the 6-7?
mostly black neighborhood. Most of the people were from the islands,
The West Indies.
Caribbean, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Haiti,
Uh-huh.
Trinidad, Guyana, for the most part, that's what most of the people were island people.
Uh-huh.
So it was busy. There was a lot of guns and a lot of violence in the command.
And what was the violence and the guns mostly from the drug trade?
Well, it was, towards the late 80s, the crack wars really were in full swing. You had the Jamaican guys who were big with the weed and stuff and pushed out some of the traditional dealers of the neighborhood. Um,
Did they
and
have the Jamaican posses that actually came from Jamaica
yes,
into Brooklyn?
yeah, they were some serious dudes. And, the war was on. Nobody liked the territory taken over, but when people moved in, they had to show their muscle and push the other guy out. And one thing led to another, and there was just a lot of violence, and there was a
Yeah.
lot of gangs, not really structured gangs, but a lot of every block seemed to have a gang. Whether it was the 53rd Street, you know, all names you could imagine. Everybody seemed to be in a gang. Um,
And who tracked the gangs in the precinct? Was it the RIP unit,
uh,
the crime, the squad?
yeah,
This
mostly
was
it
like
was mostly
this was pre-gang units, pretty much.
right. The gangs weren't really, like I said, it wasn't as structured as it is now with a gang unit and it's blood, Crips, different set. It was more of a, like I said, a little region or a street. And maybe we had some intel. Like when I got in the RIP, we kept some intel on some guys, and some guys who we knew we identified as being in a certain gang and stuff like that. But I would say mostly the RIP guys were the ones who really started to compile.
And just for our audience, RIP back then stood for Robbery Investigation Program.
That's correct.
And someone got the idea that most robbers live and commit robberies in the precinct in which they live. They're lazy. They don't want to travel outside it. So they came
Yeah.
up with the idea that if we generate all these photos, and these were actually like wet photos back then,
Yes. Yeah.
because there was no computer
Yeah.
photos,
Yeah.
and we collected these mug books. Remember the mug books?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
if someone stole a photo, you were like ready to kill them. Wait, who took that photo, right? And then you would actually sometimes have to go to one police plaza when you didn't have a photo. And I used to love that because I was a RIP sergeant. I'd lose the detective for the whole day because
Yeah.
he's driving down to downtown Manhattan during rush hour. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things.
Well, that was our that was our Sunday job. Sunday
Yeah,
morning day tour. If it's
yeah,
if
it
it's
was. But when
quiet,
someone
shoot
needed
down
a
and shoot back. Yeah.
right, but when someone needed, think of how antiquated that is,
I
right?
know.
Having to drive to get a damn photo.
Yeah.
And then sometimes wait online because they were so busy, right?
I know. Yeah.
The antiquated system. I remember when they first switched, and they were saying everyone's going to get a workstation and a computer. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
No way is this police department going for that money.
Right.
And they
Yeah.
probably got the money from the feds. Because
I would think so. Yeah.
you know. But anyway, let's. I just wanted to bring that up because
I know. I
you
know.
worked during the same era I did, and the frustrations of not having a photo say because when you want to get someone ID'd, you have to make what's called a photo array.
Correct.
And
Yes.
for our audience, it's the photo of the subject and five other photos.
Correct.
And they
Yes.
have to be sort of wearing the same thing. There can't be any blaring
Right.
things in the background that
Yeah.
could.
If your subject had a beard, everybody had to have a beard.
Right.
It had to be the sort of the same skin tone, same, as close as you can get, hair wise, age wise, and stuff like that.
So it's almost like when being in RIP, you had to be pretty good at arts and crafts.
Oh yeah.
You
It
did
was
well in Miss Miller's
cutting
art
pictures.
class.
Getting the white out, the cover, whatever it is.
Right, you had to know how to do all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I know. But
Or draw an earring on everyone, you know.
yes,
Guy,
yes.
the subject has. I remember one time I actually did a live lineup, and I just painted a mustache
Yeah.
on these guys with one of those scripto pens, and it actually worked. Because
Yeah.
if you're standing back from the glass,
Right, right.
it looked like a real mustache. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
you know,
All good stuff. Yeah.
yeah, all great stuff. So tell us now, how did RIP, the Robbery Investigation Program, and anti-crime interact in the 6-7?
Well, we were like, they were like the guys in the squad we really, were in contact with. Uh, I mean, they had asked, if they had a nickname, we would ask them, they would ask us, hey, this guy from, 9-3 in Rutland, you ever hear this guy, this, that, and the other thing. And they would tell us, who's wanted, who's doing stick ups, what do they hear on the street. And it was just a constant, communication back and forth between us and them to let us know, to let each other know what was happening.
Right.
And you know what? Everybody wanted to go to RIP and anti-crime. That was the other
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, also the fact that a precinct commander could promote from from patrol into anti-crime,
Right.
and from anti-crime into RIP, gave him a huge power, and because
Right.
everyone wanted it. You wanted to impress your precinct CO, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
Yes.
it sort of made you behave,
Yes, it did. It did.
right?
But it was a great program. I said anti-crime, was great, and I'd say RIP was even better. But anti-crime is where you make that jump. You make the jump from patrol to the plain clothes, and you take off from there. Which happened to me. I really took off when I got to anti-crime, and things went great for me after that.
And how was would you have a team with 6 cops and a sergeant?
Yeah, it was. I think we had either 5 or 6 guys.
And you alternated 4-to-1, 10-to-6.
Right. I mean, that was another great thing. No rocking around the clock. It was either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, Monday off, and you work days and nights.
And you still got chart days back then.
And you got chart days. So add that to your vacation days. It was another 18 days off a year.
But something, people don't understand what a cop's life is like, and sometimes you have to take a day off, burn a day off, just because you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And people don't understand. Well, what do you mean you don't? What do you mean? Well, I worked 36 hours straight.
Yeah.
Like they don't understand that. A teacher or someone working on Wall Street that you worked 36 hours straight.
No, I mean, you know what? It happened a lot to us, because the precinct was so busy that a lot of times we had to jump in and out of, we jumped into uniform.
Right.
Whatever. Got patrol guys collared up. There was the sectors, a bunch of sectors knocked out. You got to suit up and do it. Or whatever. You were finishing up at 4 to 12. If you didn't have a collar or whatever, they'd anybody looking to hang on the midnight. And we were all gung ho. Yeah, I also worked the midnight.
Yeah, I haven't had enough of this shit. I want to do another tour. I love this.
So everybody either fell asleep or had a collar. We were out there,
Well, that's the crazy thing about midnights is that if you don't work midnights steady, I forget the exact hour. It's either 3 or 4. You just pass out.
Yeah.
You fall asleep just because you're on a day schedule. and you
Yeah,
just can't stay awake.
a little gunfire usually wakes you up around 4:30 when the
Yeah.
club's lit. You know.
As they're going for they're going for the after the bar's closed meal, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that was the thing too. Like you said, like a quiet Sunday morning. Some of the most busiest times was Sunday morning, just driving into work when the clubs are letting out.
Yeah, isn't that
And
crazy?
I just thinking of that one. I remember a story just sitting coming out of the precinct. It was a midnight. It was like 5:30 in the morning, and I was parked. It's parked by the Africa House, which is a club in on Snyder Avenue in Bedford in the 6-7. And as we're sitting there, we get a job, and the Central comes over holding 77 jobs in the 6-7. Handle a dispute, that came in at noon on Martens and Nostrand, and I'm like, it's 5:30 in the morning. Somebody called 911 12 whatever hours ago, and now we're going to this job. And as we're next to the Africa House, you hear the gunfire start going off, and you look across the street, and there's four hands out the window of a car with each got a gun, shooting rounds in the air.
Oh, shit.
Now we got the people coming out of the club. They see us in the car. What do? They run to the car. Now we have a sea of humanity on the car. They're trying to break the door, pound the window, trying to climb into the car. The police car, It wasn't till they all
You're at full
finally,
capacity. Sorry.
I'm trying to inch up the car, trying to start, stop. I don't want to run anybody over, but I want them to fall off. And lo and behold, once the people get away from the car, they're still there. And boom, we hit the gas. We get a little pursuit. They were from out of town, so they didn't know where they were going. So we caught up with them, and it was a nice collar, but that's what happens in the middle of the night. So you always
They didn't hit anybody though, did they?
no, it was just recreational, just letting off a
Recreational
little,
shooting. Because when you think
let off a
about it,
little
they
steam.
really
That's
can't
all.
go to a range with those illegal guns.
Yeah,
Well, they're not fair,
right, yeah. They're
So
great
you
stuff.
could like go up on the roof of a housing project, or
Yeah, we had a lot of clubs in the precinct, so that always brought. You had your time. It was really not busy until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning,
right.
and then
But with those clubs, you can also get beef from one part of Brooklyn to another part of Brooklyn.
right, yeah,
Or from Manhattan came to Brooklyn to settle a beef in this club, right? You get that kind of shit.
yeah,
And
a lot
that's
of
where there's a lot of violence with that kind of stuff.
yeah,
I used to love when people would we'd have it in a 2-3 where people would throw a huge party in their apartment in the housing project, and
right,
people would come from all over, and of course some shit's gonna happen.
yeah. It's
Someone gets dissed. Someone from Brooklyn.
weird how that happens, right?
Yeah, they didn't like the Brooklyn fronts. Remember those gold teeth they used to
Oh
put
yeah.
fronts on?
Well,
You
that's
could
the
tell he
thing.
was from Brooklyn.
You used to see the flyers up in the neighborhood, whatever they called it, Dollarama, gun in a baggie party, all these crazy parties they would have, and another quick story about the club scene is that at the time we had our CO was Captain Dever, who put me into anti-crime. Great guy. When he first came to the precinct, he was astonished at the amount of violence in these clubs. So he decided to get us guys in anti-crime and a couple of SNU guys, and we did we got a little team together, and we went out hammering these clubs on a night. This one night, we were towing cars and
Right.
writing summonses and all this other stuff. And
Well, did these clubs have liquor licenses?
some did.
Some were just illegal clubs.
Right. They were just rooms or converted, storefronts and stuff. And so we had grabbed maybe, we started at 6 o'clock at night, probably by about midnight. Maybe we had 3 or 4 guns, guys. We used to have things hooked up with some of the bouncers. You could see guys getting turned away, and they give us a little signal, or you could watch guys walking off, hiding the gun. We picked up a few guys, nothing crazy.
Right.
Well, the captain was getting a little bit, man, I got all these guys in, and I was hoping for something to happen. And I said, take it easy. It's only 4 in the morning, because some guys are still in the barbershop, some of these guys. They'll be out soon. So me and my main partner, Chris Higgins, We worked together for most of our time in crime, and he's the greatest street cop I ever worked with. But we went out on a little, drive around the neighborhood, and we ran it up to this club on Rogers Avenue called the Spare Wheel Disco and Lounge. It was about the size of like a garage, a regular.
Did you have your hair blown back and you were in your disco clothes or what?
I'm sorry, what's that?
I said, did you have your hair blown back and were you wearing your disco shoes or what?
No. The usual, green army jacket and
Oh,
baseball.
you were wearing the anti-crime uniform.
Yes.
The only thing I used to get pissed off about was when someone wore a football jersey. I'd be like, do you not want to make a collar? Keep wearing that fucking football jersey.
Yeah.
Don't ever wear a football jersey again.
So what happened is, anyhow, we passed this club and there's a couple of guys shooting up in the air out front of the place. They see us and they run into the club, and we go running into the club after them. And guys are climbing out windows and all that. We want to get like 18 guns out of this place.
Oh shit!
It's just this one little, like I said, it was the size of a normal like garage.
And it was just you and your partner?
I'm sorry, what's that?
It was just you and your partner?
It was you and my partner, and then the other guys in the task force. We called the 85, and everybody came, and we were able to just lock up just a handful of those people, guys who had the guns still on them, or we saw them toss them and that. But we were finding guns, the toilet, coolers of beer and stuff like that. So, it was great. By the end of the night, we had about, I would say, at least, 24 guns, 15, 20 collars, cars, tones, summonses, all types of shit, great shit went on.
Why do you think in the 6-7, I'm not sure, I mean, not just the 6-7 other precincts back then, but why did people think they needed or could get away with carrying a gun?
Well, there was a lot of things. First of all, guys always felt they needed to for protection, for protection from the other bad guy. And the other thing was, a lot of clubs had some of these, heavy players that were bouncers there that would let certain guys in based on one faction, so they weren't worried about getting caught. It wasn't like, they wouldn't get thrown out of the club. They'd go in there knowing that the people at the door would protect them.
Right.
But a crazy thing happened, just going back to that story. What happened that night is Happy Land burned down that night.
Oh, in the Bronx.
The Bronx.
The 89 people dead, I think.
Yeah. So so of course, how come these things go on? How does these places, no license, all these people, there's, where are the police and all this? So here we are, our little band of merry men and all our guns and collars. And, the captain got a good, good write-up on it for him.
Right. I remember after Happy Land, the police department's response to that was just to check all the social clubs they had in their precinct.
Yeah.
That were illegal, and then just visit them. That was their, they didn't really do anything.
Right.
Not till years later did they come up with the nuisance abatement, where I remember a club or a bar could have fights, stabbing, shootings, and no one would ever go after their liquor license. But then, of course,
that was like, in Brooklyn, you got to, you had an illegal club, maybe you get arrested. In Manhattan, you lost your license,
Right.
And what's worse? That's why a lot of these guys should say, I got to pay my taxes once in a while, meaning that they had to take a collar once in a while.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, but I know that, once it hit the Comstat era, if bars had any kind of fights or they would take, they would give them a nuisance abatement.
Right. Yeah, then they started doing the padlock places with the euro and stuff like that. Yeah.
And that's when the owners of these clubs started paying attention.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy shit. And I saw some of you on what you wrote, that you guys made 323 gun collars. Was that in a year?
No, that was my number. I always remembered the number because my wife's car was a Mazda 323, and I used to drive it back and forth. So when I got to RIP, I think I checked through the book and looked through all the collars, and I wasn't always the AO in those cases, but those were like a Chris Mader gun collar, or later on when we worked with another great guy, Richie Bergen. We were all looking to make a run. It wasn't like I made the arrest every day. It was me, it was Richie, it was Chris, it was Will Galligan, it was Marty Mull. Everybody got had a collar. So that was like a total of my anti-crime career.
Wow.
The
That's
three,
that's an
3 years.
impressive number, you know?
Yeah, it was like I said, it was nights like that where you got 15 guns or 4 guys in a car. There was a lot of guns, and
How was the Brooklyn DA's office in drawing up these gun collars?
some good, but mostly not so good. It was like, it is. We were down there going to the grand jury so often, and you didn't always get the cooperation. It was like, they looked at like the bulge or the furtive movement as like, something akin to like Bigfoot. Oh,
Yeah.
let me guess, another bulge or whatever. And yeah, there's guys that have bulges. There's guys that we weren't dealing with the Brooklyn law. We were dealing with the criminal procedure law that
Right.
reasonable suspicion and when we could stop people. They kept changing that, and they wanted to say, everything a bulge is no good. You have to see the handle or the barrel or the shape of a gun in somebody's pants, and it's just ridiculous. I'm not going to.
Didn't they also in Brooklyn back then, or maybe it was even before that, a lot of the people from the Caribbean would have the gun with the wire going through the barrel
Yes, yes,
and
yeah.
attached
A
to
little
the
like a coat hanger that was shaped like a big U. You
right.
put the barrel in there and then put the other clip in there. Yeah, guys had all that type of stuff. Guys, and a lot of guys would wear like a belt around the upper chest and stick the gun up here. Um, so there was all types of ways to try to beat the search, so to speak.
There was Brooklyn creativity back then.
Yeah, well, you got to survive, right?
That's great. So let me ask you about, people always want to hear about the exciting things like the gunfights and stuff. And you had 2 combat crosses, right?
Yes.
Did you get one of them in anti-crime or both?
One I did with was me and Chris Higgins. Yes.
And what happened with that?
Um, Actually, I have a little one of the 911 tapes from it, but I don't know if it even come across if I could play it. But what happened is that we were on anti-crime patrol, me and Chris, and it was a cold January night, and a couple of rookies were on a foot post. I mean, you could tell they were rookies. They were actually out there at 11 o'clock at night, when it's like 0 degrees out. It was a January night. But a person ran up to him and said, I just got robbed. That guy over there robbed me. He's got a gun. So they get on the radio and they put it over the radio. And we hear it. We jump on it. And now we're coming over to where they are. And they're giving the direction of where the perp's going. They're a little bit off. They didn't know, east from west or whatever. And anyhow, we get to the scene where we see them. They're maybe a block away, and they're pointing down the block. And it's the only one guy walking on the street. So what we do is we take off in the crime car. Chris is driving. I jump out, and which we've done 1,000 times. But we always knew what each other was doing for the most part.
You know something, Mike? That is so great because that is how anti-crime cops talk to each other. Let me out, and then they'll cut the guy off with the car.
Right. So that was the plan. Like I said, depending on who was driving, whatever.
Yeah.
I come up on foot.
And you almost know instinctively to do that
Right.
without even talking to your partner.
Right. I mean, we like I said, we were like we knew everything each other was doing. So
Right.
so what happens is I get out, I'm coming up behind the guy, and Chris mounts the sidewalk in front of him, and I run up behind the guy and I try to put him up against the hood. And the guy's a big guy. I mean, like big, like 6 foot, well over 6 foot tall. And he's a burly guy.
Yeah.
And I'm trying
to. In Manhattan, we'd say he was cock diesel.
Yes. So we're so I'm struggling with the guy yelling, please, stop, don't move. He's not having it. And I reach around like his neck, I'm up on his back, and I'm hitting him with the gun. I'm trying anything to try to get him under control. And I'm trying to grab him around the neck, and he reaches to his pocket. He pulls a pistol out.
Oh, shit.
And as I got him around the neck, he pops around, and it like shoots off my wrist. And I start shooting him. Chris is out, and now the guy shoots Chris. He's got the gun pointed across the hood, the hood, and now we're both shooting at him. And the guy eventually falls. Even a couple of patrol guys pulled up and fired a couple of shots. So the guy wouldn't fall. He didn't fall down. and he kept squeezing the gun. And would save one thing that saved us is that he only had 2 live rounds in the gun.
Wow.
So we fired
Did he miss the last? Did he miss the last range cycle? Where they gave
Yeah,
him
something
his
must
new-
have happened. I think he had a previous, whatever.
They didn't give him his new
It was
box.
a- Yeah, so that was it, and it was just crazy, And I said I was just like listening to the tape when I was looking through some of my stuff. It's like you think about it, I mean, we were, when Chris came around in the front of the car and the guy fired around and whipped the pistol. It was the three of us, like in like hand to hand,
Yeah, yeah.
and how the perp didn't hit us and how we didn't shoot each other.
That's what I was wondering. Did Chris almost shoot you?
Yeah, it was a miracle, and I talked to the
Did the perp die?
yes.
Okay.
So
Who was he? What did you find out after his demise? Who he was?
yes,
I mean, what was his criminal history and all of that?
he was a Jamaican guy, but no known record, which doesn't usually, doesn't always surprise, because some guys will come in, whatever, maybe they come in for a job to do a job and leave. Guys with, there was nothing really that I remember that came up.
Was that common in the 6-7 that someone would come there, do a hit, and fly back to Jamaica?
Yeah, sort of like a gangster thing,
Yeah.
people, guys would do that, and they would
That
come.
happened a lot in Washington Heights, where a guy would come from the Dominican Republic,
Right.
whack
Right.
somebody, get on the next flight back to the Dominican.
Yeah, I mean, the Jamaican guys were known for that kind of stuff too, and from other states. And you know what, the system didn't really. You could say your name is Bill Cannon, and if you get arrested, it's not till your prints come back and all that other stuff.
Right,
And,
right.
that we could really say, oh, that's not Bill Cannon, that's so and so, that's this guy. But he uses many names. So, but this guy was not really on any sort of radar.
Did you get grazed from the shot across your wrist?
Yes, just slightly, nothing crazy, But Chris had actually powder burns in his eyes. And I mean, that's how close we are with the guns flying, and the bullets flying all over the place,
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a crazy thing, and even the guys pulling all the other cops on the scene that witnessed it, were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you guys aren't dead." And, it was just one of those things. Like I said, I was listening to the tape saying, you know what, you think about, man, that was the last words. You listen to, the tape as it leads up to the shooting and say, man, that could have been the last word.
That's the kind of thing that, when they talk about cops having PTSD, that's the kind of thing that, you could wake up in the middle of the night reliving that thing,
Yeah, well, it's, you don't really think about that type of stuff, but when you go back and like, actually somebody was showing me I don't know, it was some sort of video. I don't even know where it came from, but I think it was Officer Mulkeen from the Bronx and his partner in a radio call shortly before they got involved. And and they're listening to the tune on the radio and like everything's great. And then boom, a second later, it could just be gone, Yeah. So
that's all it takes, right?
yeah.
And then, so that was your first combat force.
That was my second, actually.
Oh, that was your second.
First one, I think we talked about the last time when I got shot in the vest.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I was on patrol at that time, and that's what actually that's what got me into anti-crime. I mean, I was pretty active guy on patrol, hoping to go to anti-crime, but after I had gotten shot the first time with that, in the vest and that thing, Captain Dever told me the next spot's yours if you want it.
That's great.
So I jumped on it.
Did you work with Mike Ryder?
He was a little before me.
Okay, yeah, I went to
He was one of the guys. He was one of the guys.
College with him.
Yeah. He's one of the guys you wanted to be, when you came to the command and you were on
Tough
patrol.
guy. He's a real tough guy.
Yeah. Well, we had a lot of ass kicking guys in that command.
Yeah.
Even guys that didn't go to anti-crime, they were street cops and they loved the collar and go out there and do the right thing. And they were a really great group of guys we had over there.
And usually, what people don't understand is that in a real busy command, the cops are tight.
Yes.
And they back up other cops like crazy. Where, in a slow command, they just sometimes they don't get it, you know.
Right. Yeah. No, we had a great group of guys during that mid '80s to mid '90s. 85 to '95. Let's say we had a really, and we still get together. We have, well, now with the Wuhan, we haven't been able to have a reunion.
Yeah, doesn't
But
that suck, man? It's like this whole,
yeah,
it's like you're sort of stuck in your house, even though you can go out here and there, but you can't do the things you want to do. You can't travel. You can't
I know.
really go to many restaurants. You go to a restaurant, they want you to sit outside with the carbon monoxide from the cars.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's nuts. So and then eventually, you want to move on from anti-crime to your RIP career?
Um.
You got some more stuff to tell us about anti-crime.
Well, one thing I could, well, I'll tell one anti-crime story that sort of leads into RIP, which was pretty cool, and it's actually my I want to say it's probably my favorite or top three arrests. We were driving around anti-crime, and we saw a young woman walking down the street. She's like wobbling, her eyes all blown out, and we were trying to ask her what happened. And the woman was so nice. She didn't even know we were the police. And, a couple of the knuckleheads on the corner had to say, they're cops. Tell her what happened. Tell her what happened. And she's like, oh, okay. And she said that she got robbed at gunpoint and they took her purse. And all right, get in the car. We whip around and we start riding around the area looking, she tells us it's a guy and a girl. So we're riding around, we're looping around, and boom, there's the guy and the girl walking down the street. She screams, "That's them! That's them!" We jump out, we chase them. Now they run into this. Well, we could call it a house of worship, but not really. It was like a black Israelite, some faction of the Yowie type building on Clarkson in East 51st Street.
Uh-huh.
What it was like something out of was it Fagin or Oliver Twist? And there were stick up guys,
It was a school for criminals.
stick up guys who would recruit and sometimes by force younger people into doing armed stick ups. So anyhow, we run in, and we ran in, and that was like a no for it's a sensitive location. The job, everybody was afraid of that place, because it was politically connected or whatever. But anyhow, we ran in there, we grabbed.
They could say you desecrated this religious institution.
Right, but whatever. We ran in, we grabbed the guy and the girl, and we grabbed the gun. They had a nice Smith. That was a nice Smith 9. One thing, people always had nice guns in the 6.7.
Yeah.
I mean, some guy, you come across your Ravens or your Saturday night specials, but they had a lot of nice guns. Meanwhile, we're running around with a weapon that pretty much was the same gun used to fight Indians 200 years before.
You still had the 4-inch Smith and Wesson.
Right, but these guys are running around with Glock 10s and 40 cals.
I think they first went to in '92. They gave us 9s, and it was just the anti-crime and the
Yeah,
right?
I never got one, so.
Never got a 9.
No, I never got a 9.
You stayed with the 38 your whole career.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
You had all these gunfights with a 38.
Yeah. Well, it always went off, But so anyhow, what happens is we grab a man, gray collar and all that, and we get back and I speak to the victim, and she says, "Did you find my pocketbook?" No, we didn't. Well, it had, I think she said it had like $4,000 in it. $4,000. What the hell are you doing with that kind of money? Well, I worked all summer at McDonald's and I was saving it. I was putting in the bank. I needed money. I want to go to college and I couldn't get in. So I had to save all this money all summer to go to college. Now I'm like, oh, we got to get this girl's money.
Yeah.
So now by the time all the stuff is, the smoke's cleared, the hoopla, the pursuit and all that back, about an hour is gone at least. So we asked our two guests at the time, the young couple, what happened? Oh, we threw it on the street. I don't know what you're talking about. And they weren't giving anything up. So I said, the hell with it. I shot up there and I started riding around. And I see a pocketbook hanging on the fence post. Sort of in the same area where we found the girl, where the knuckleheads were on the corner. And they're standing there and I'm like, hey, good looking out, fellas, you let a young girl get beat like that and robbed, and they're like, "Eh, we mind our own business" type shit and all that. So I pick up the pocketbook and I reach in, and there it is, the envelope.
And
I
still had the
pull it out,
$4,000
and
in
I
it.
look at these guys. You should have paid a little more attention. And there's 4 G's in that envelope. I
Wow.
went back to the precinct, and that girl, man, she cried, and it was special, you know. And I mean, I never spoke to her really after that again. I mean, it was over and done. But that's one thing about patrol; it was pretty much over and done with. But I hope she went to. I hope she became a doctor or something. You know, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I
that's a
really
great
hope she
story.
did something good. But going back to this Mother Bradshaw, they like I said, they were like it was like robbery central, that place. And
Did you get
um,
any blowback on running into this religious place?
yes, yeah, we always did, and we would, you know, the RIP guys, and then later when I got into RIP, we had them identified in several robberies, usually commercial. Um, but what happened was is that I was in homicide at the time, and two of my crime partners, one was in the Brooklyn robbery, and the other one was in apprehension, and I had caught a murder in the 6-7 that came back to these guys. And my partner in homicide had caught another murder that came back to these guys. And two young guys, sort of my proteges, Junior and Devo, were young cops who were in the RIP now. So it was like past, present, and future. You know, we got everybody together and we did a big Fed case on the place. And we blew up the whole operation.
Oh, nice.
We got them for like, you know, 20, 30 commercial robberies from here to Baltimore,
They,
dozens of
they
shootings.
RICO them or what?
I'm sorry, what's that?
Did the feds RICO them?
Yes, they did the Hobbs Act on them.
Oh,
You
cool.
know, the interstate. You know, so
Yeah,
we banged out, you know, like 8 of them. You know, for murders, shootings, and a bunch of cases, and it was good because it was every time we had these guys ID'd, something would happen. The complainant would lose interest.
yeah.
We later find out they had an in the police department who was giving them complainants information, and they were calling the complainants and threatening them. Yeah, it was sickening to hear that. But and he got locked up too, thankfully, you know.
The guy who was given the information.
Yeah, you know.
Good.
But yeah, so that was like a transition, you know, where like, you know, we weren't able to do it in crime, but we got to RIP, and then we all got together, and then we moved on from RIP to different commands. And we were able to go back to our roots with the young guys and hook up and you know, get these guys off the street, which was great, you know.
You know, it's so great when you can follow an investigation
Right.
for some time and see it really come together and put away the bad guy. Whereas in anti-crime, you know, you're making street arrests and you really don't get a chance to do that.
Right. You know, Rip, you could keep. That's why I thought, you know, to me that was the best job I ever had, because you could play. You know, you could play. You know, cops and robbers. You could be on the street and you could follow it up. You know, if somebody got robbed and he didn't find the perp, well, you know, you could, you know, whatever. You follow it up. You show them pictures. You do canvas. Canvas for other witnesses and stuff like that. You
Right.
follow the case through a lot more.
Yeah, no, Rip was a great program, you know, great program.
Yeah.
Now I think it's relegated to they called it RAM for a while.
Yeah, they did like a burger. They watered it
Then they
down
called
quite
it
a bit.
RAM. They gave them burglaries and robberies.
Right.
I got a feeling it's going to go back all the way back to Rip once robberies start going through the roof again. You know?
Yeah. Well, robbery too. I mean, the thing with RIP is that you got to do everything. I mean, you interviewed victims, you did interrogation on subjects, you did lineups, takeout orders, photo arrays, all that stuff you need to do detective work.
No one did more lineups than Rip.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Some classic ones too. You had the guy to come in. He looks and he goes, "Oh, very good work, detective. You got all of them." No, not really. Like, well, is that a hit? Because he did pick out our subject, but he picked out everybody else. Is that a hit or not? Some people would look,
Those other five are cops.
I had one guy one time, he looked, he ran, and we never saw the guy again.
Yeah.
He got so scared. And that was sometimes, you see that too. I had a guy that on a pattern in the RIP, and he, not a bright guy by any stretch. He was doing robberies on a bike with a gun in February when nobody else had a bike. Um, and he robbed every sweetheart woman in the neighborhood, school teachers, nurses, working girls, college. I mean, this guy, you weren't gonna miss ID this guy. He just was very distinctive looking. I mean, you know, he just wasn't a handsome guy, so to speak. He really stuck out. But I tell you, he scared the hell out of these ladies. And when we did, we did the lineups, and then he went in, and then we did a takeout order. And when we did the next set, he had his lawyer with him.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to the lawyer, "Look, you see how these women, when they looked, because the lawyer gets to view the lineup and that.
Right.
See how scared these women were. See how violent this stuff is. And he didn't know what to say. Like." I know he's doing his job and all that, but I could just, down in court, it's like, all these ladies were lying and they picked the wrong guy and
Right.
everybody looked the same. And, this guy stuck out. There was 5 white guys in with him or something crazy shit they make up.
I always used to have to brief the lawyer, because I was
Yeah.
in the lineup and say, "Counselor, as you know, you can observe. Do not open your mouth in there."
Right. Yeah. Well,
They
yeah.
wanted to. Sometimes they would anyway.
Yeah. No, they would. I never liked that part of it too, because it was an intimidation factor. Like, who's that? They know it's not another detective.
Right.
But like the lawyer he's just a lawyer to what, I didn't like the fact how our room was set up, that he would be standing there with me and the witness, and he would be there watching,
Right.
And then regardless, everything was on the up and up, but he'd still make accusations that you did this, that, and the other thing.
And how about now? And I don't know specifically. Actually, tomorrow, I've been out 9 years.
Wow.
Right. 31st, 2011, I retired. But they were sort of going to what they call the double blind lineup.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they've ever done that yet, but
they've done it. They were doing it. We were phasing it in when I was still there, and photo array showings also. Having.
Yeah, I always thought like the question, the subject may not be in the lineup, and I always felt that was unfair to the victim, because well, then why am I here if the guy who did this crime to me may not be in there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I didn't really mind that much. It's just, it was, like I said, you could only make it so fair, I mean, and my thing is, how, it's the guy or it's not the guy. You could put 5 other people in it. And most of these identifications were like, oh yeah, I went to Tilden with him. Or he goes to, Razzmatazz or Erasmus. I go to, Wingate. Whatever. Everybody, like, you sort of seen the person before. Very, very rarely was a complete stranger.
Right.
And even when that was, I mean, really, like I said, we used to get all our fillers from the armory. We asked if you had like a 20-year-old suspect, if you went and got 20, tried to find 20-year-old guys to sit in the lineup, they'd be like, I ain't sitting in the lineup. What happens if I get picked?
No way. And even more impossible were the juvenile lineups.
Yeah.
I got jammed up one time over that because we didn't get written permission.
Yeah. They're tough things to put together.
Impossible. And the police department wants no part of it. Oh, you guys got to figure this out. What do you mean? No one wants to be in the juvenile lineup.
Nobody wants to be
get 25-year-olds to play a 15-year-old.
Yeah. And you know what? I could probably count on one hand the amount of mishits I got. I had people that say I don't recognize anybody, but they never say it's it's number 2. That's him. That's the guy. And it was really, the subject was number 3. It was either no hit or a hit. It wasn't, like I said, they identified
the wrong guy. Yeah.
No, but the armory was always fun. We used to go down to the armory on Bedford Avenue in the 7-7 and get our fillers there. So when you pulled up in the squad car, they came running out for that $10 bill.
Usually $10. They could be there for 3 hours too, right?
Guys, they climb into the car, they lay on the hood, they do anything. And
I used to hate when
dry. You need a beard. No beards. They'd be dry shaven and hair be flying all over the place.
I used to hate when you do a lot of lineups and there was no money left. And
yeah.
Then, of course, the police department just expected that you would use your own money till the check came in, right?
And then these guys wanted a ride back to the armory now.
Right.
And that didn't go over. But another funny story about the armory. One time I pulled up, me and Higgins, we got the desk officer asked, "Hey, shoot this guy down to Central Booking and lodge him." Somebody had a collar, was tied up or whatever. So we go down there, we're passing the armory, and first I think they're running towards us because we're looking for lineup fillers, but there's a guy there parked in a car, Dread, and he's got a duffel bag and it's filled with money. And he's got the windows open and he's literally throwing money out on the street in front of them. And the whole armory is empty now. This guy's screaming, yelling, there's money blowing all over the street, you know? So, I call over to the guy. Hey, Ross, what'd you do? Rob a bank? Oh, no, man, I'm just helping out the less fortunate. I said, oh, yeah, pull up, just hold up a second. So I go over to, pull behind him. He takes off, and now the chase is on. So we're chasing the car, and the guys in the armory are chasing us. There's money all over. God knows how much money's blowing all out the window. We chased him around. We wound up getting him, and he had a gun on him, and that. And so he still had like $1,100 in the duffel bag. So I don't know what he started with, but yeah. So we called him, and the guy in the back wasn't too happy about it. The guy on his way to Central Booking. He got it right. He wound up suing us and everything because we put his life in danger.
Oh,
Yeah,
good. What was the money from?
he was a weed dealer, a big weed dealer, as it turned out. And at the time, the guys at RIP had some marshals, doing like a task force thing, and they like sort of enhanced it and wound up doing a search warrant on his house and came up with like 9 other guns and like $500,000. So turned out to be good, but
you guys had some serious guys in that 6-7 precinct area there, huh?
I'm sorry, what's that?
You had some serious criminals in the.
Yeah, we had a nice array of a lot of talent there.
A nice rogues gallery of criminals.
Yes. You know what it is, because it's not like it's you're right, through the night, the daytime and stuff. It's a nice neighborhood. Said it's not loaded with projects. There are apartment buildings, but not big massive apartment buildings. It's pretty much a middle class, especially the south end is all nice, semi and some even detached homes all around. So if you were like a player from the north or somewhere else, you settle down to maybe south end of the 6-7 in a private house.
Right.
And then later on, guys like that wind up moving to Canarsie and that's what turned Canarsie quite a bit. It was like the home invasion capital of the world, Canarsie after that.
That was all from the drug trade, right?
Well, the guys didn't want to live on New Lots Avenue in Brownsville. They could go to the Paddocks in Canarsie and live in a big home with a yard, and they weren't bothered by anybody. But every once in a while, whatever would happen, and there'd be a shooting or a home invasion type thing. So
sounds like a really exciting precinct to work in.
Yeah, and like I said, RIP, we had I think my first year we had 3,000 robberies in the command.
Wow.
And
did you have a lot of other units working in the 6-7, like DEA and?
No.
They weren't
Every
there.
once in a while, the squad would have a case, maybe the FBI, and at one time, they had like an operation, I think Gunsmoke or something they call it, where the marshals came in and would, similar to what Trigger Lock was and stuff like that. They take some of these guys, and instead of it just being a gun collar and in and out of jail, they hammered some guys, so the feds really.
The feds would take them, trigger lock them, and they could go 15 years for a gun, right?
Right, yeah. Then the press was most guys were legal aliens on top of it, and the gun charge, previous violent arrests and that, and they went to jail. I mean, real jail for a long time.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the people from the Caribbean, I mean, they come over here and their police in the Caribbean, Jamaican police, they're really violent.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, 10 times more violent than the NYPD.
Right.
I think the NYPD is pretty restrained. But even all those Caribbean islands, they don't play, man.
No.
The cops there, every one of them has probably been in a shooting or two,
Yeah, no, there's some heavy spots. They have the area called the Concrete Jungle, Tivoli Gardens, and a lot of the factions, the drug factions, and the police are driven by political parties.
Right.
And Yeah, there was no. I don't think they'd be. You look up what people get upset, and believe me, I don't think it should be the way it is. I mean, this is the United States. I understand we have a Constitution and Bill of Rights. But if what went on in Jamaica went on here, people really have a complaint.
Yeah. Oh
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
forget about it.
Yeah,
But you also they're dealing with, like in Kingston, they're dealing with these gangs.
yeah,
The kingpin of the gang is 15 years old.
right, yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
it's,
crazy stuff.
it's
Yeah,
so violent. It's like,
yeah,
and then they come here and they're like, oh, they learn the law real fast, right? They do
right.
what they can, and
Well, they also learn how to get around things, giving fake names, realizing that okay, you get caught with a gun, you're probably not going to go to jail, you know, and being the fact that you're an illegal alien, no one even thought twice about that, um, which to me always used to be like a thing, like like Colin Ferguson, the Long Island Railroad, he got locked up in the 6-7 with a gun. And that, whatever. Maybe he got indicted, maybe he didn't. No, he must have got indicted because the collar's still on the record. But he never went to jail, and he never was deported. So when that
where
incident
was
happened,
Ferguson from?
I'm sorry,
Where was Colin
he
Ferguson
was a
from?
Jamaican national.
Oh, he's Jamaican.
Yeah, and he lived over on Martin Street. But more people were really caught up in all the illegal guns, stop the flow of guns than they were about. Well, not for nothing, he was here illegally. He got arrested, and we let him go when he was out on the street again. Without getting into the whole gun laws. I mean, I think a bigger issue is that we had this guy and we didn't do anything with him.
Well, I think that was very common back then.
Yes,
If you get arrested, they didn't deport him. You know,
but
and now I
that
think
never happened.
the law now I think is that you have to do a mandatory 5 years here, and then
Yeah,
they deport you, right?
yeah. I remember talking in those times too. From guys from other cities saying, "Oh, what's going on? I heard you got," because they would call before the Jamaicans were like Brooklyn was sort of, or Flatbush, East Flatbush was sort of like, it's like the Mayflower. It was like Plymouth Rock
Right.
uh, for some, Rastafarians and a lot of the Jamaicans, and then they spread out, and then they would start factions in wherever, Miami, Kansas City, and they used to ask, like, so we would get a lot of calls from out of town departments with these guys. What can we do? I said, you have to put them in jail. Anybody that commits a violent crime has to go to jail because once that word's out, you know, you know, it
It emboldens them.
right. What's the word that they can go there and give a fake name and walk out the door in a couple of days? They're not leaving. Meanwhile, places like out here in Nassau County, if you got arrested for stealing something at a Roosevelt Field in the mall, you would get, if you gave a Brooklyn address, you were getting 1129. You know, you weren't getting like in and out. So that's why nobody came out here
Right,
and,
right.
and would do all that stuff. I mean, it changed eventually over time. It wore down, but that was a big thing. And nobody wants to go to jail, especially those guys. You know.
Well, that's Mike. That's the scary thing now is that we lived through this heavy duty crime and the crack wars and all of that stuff, and this whole catch and release philosophy that this one political party has isn't going to fly, man, over the long term. You're going to see many, Baltimore's, many Chicago's, many Portland's, many, you call it what it is, many New York Cities. New
Yeah.
York City, I always thought, what's going to happen when the crime numbers start going bad in New York City? Or this guy's going to get fired. This guy's going to get transferred. It's happening.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not like you can really blame the police because they're so handicapped by the politicians.
I know.
And
And you know what?
their job,
What did it take to turn? You had to get a Republican in there to turn it around the first time, and a lot of guys lost. A lot of people got hurt. Good people, civilian and police officers. A lot of police officers suffered for it, whether it be divorce, alcoholism, or heart attacks, or getting shot and killed, or whatever it is. A lot of people put a lot into that to make the city, the great city that it should be. And then you just gave it all away. For what? It wasn't yours to give away to begin with. Okay.
That's for
You know,
sure.
that's the thing. You're speaking, you got some tattooed, pierced ear, pierced nose girl or some soccer mom screaming about, the police and what they're doing to the poor, to this poor guy. And meanwhile, they don't live that life. They have no idea how it is to live and work in some neighborhoods in the city and other big cities.
Yeah,
Most people, the only people that have a right to speak are the people that live and work there. Nobody should tell anybody else how to live and what's right and wrong. Let those people come out. Yeah,
absolutely.
you have a knucklehead once in a while who's doing it for his own reasons to speak out against the cops. But for the most part, all the good people, no one bothers with them.
Well, you
It's
know what it's like. You can compare it to if the police can't arrest the offenders of these crimes. It's almost like letting the bully control the neighborhood.
right.
You know, because the people count on the bully being put in his place by the police.
Yeah,
But if the police can't put him in his place because they're being restrained by these laws, I don't know if you saw it. There's just an article. The head of the MTA is blaming the police for not making enough arrests on the transit system.
yeah.
Hello, guy. Who appointed you? Cuomo? Go talk to him. You know, that's who's done this.
Well, that's the with all the stuff that's going on today. It's a because everything that comes around, they wind up blaming on the people who aren't responsible for it.
Right, right,
It's,
right,
whether it be a Biden Trump thing or whatever it is, it's like, wait a minute, I didn't do it, you did that. Now I'm getting blamed for something you did, and you're saying I did it
right.
or I didn't do it. It's like bizarre. I can't I can't understand it. It's like it's really ridiculous. So, like I said, do you really want your police? Listen, I'm not for police brutality and go out and kick everybody's ass. That's not. I was never like that. You know what? I would have never survived like that, even back then in the '80s. It wasn't 1960. It wasn't 1940. It was 1980, 1990. You didn't, you couldn't, and you wouldn't go out and just violate people's rights and beat people up.
Right.
But you did police work, and you had to be rough at times. I mean, I wasn't a rough guy, a tough guy. Higgins was. I wasn't, and there was a lot of tough guys I worked with. But you had to be the police, like I said earlier. You had to be that way. And
Well,
what is it when like I
sometimes,
said, how can you stand? You know,
no,
I'm sorry. What's that?
sometimes police work isn't pretty. It's ugly. It's
Well,
ugly sometimes. And,
yeah. What do
you
they say?
know,
Everybody loves sausage, but nobody wants to see it being made.
CBV, yeah. But
Yeah.
remember just recently, a couple of months ago, warrants grabbed the guy off the street. It was like a by the book arrest as far as the police are concerned. De Blasio and all these jackasses got upset at it because they didn't like the way it looked.
I know. You know what I think it might help. I mean, I don't know if they'd ever do it. The ride along program. Have you ever heard of that at all?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, yeah,
I actually did it a few times. During they put people in, whatever reporters and stuff in the back of a radio car, and I really think some people really need that.
yeah. I think a lot of these politicians could use
I
that.
mean, sit in the back of the radio car and do a late tour in the 7-3 on a summer night, and just ride with the cops, you know.
Yeah.
And I think they should, even if they don't do it, do it to let the DAs come out. They're going to prosecute the case. Let them come out.
I thought that the DAs used.
Nobody wants to do it.
No, I thought the DAs used to do that.
They may have. I've never done it. I've gone out with DAs to crime scenes because they want to see them.
Right.
Which is like a big production. Can we bring more guys? Can I get a vest? And all that kind of stuff. Like, wait a minute, we're just going out there to take a look at the scene type thing.
Well, it's funny in a lot of jurisdictions. If there's a homicide, the DA shows up on the scene. That's the last thing you want. Is the DA
Right, yeah.
wait around at a crime scene? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, we'll deliver it to you later on. Get the fuck out of here. In Westchester, the DA shows up. Imagine that.
Yeah, no, I know it's happened. And like I used to say to a couple of the DAs, I'd say like, it's like Law and Order. You watch Law and Order. Well, I watched the first half hour of Law and Order, then they turn it off. So when it's your turn, it's your turn.
Right. The thing that I could never stand about Law and Order is every time they make the arrest, they start reading Miranda as they're
Yeah,
walking away. I was like, who told them to do that? It's so
yeah.
ridiculous. It's you know,
I think it goes back to the old Dragnet show. When Miranda was became law. Then they started putting it in. On the Dragnet shows.
right.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, who really? Yeah, you do. Miranda has to be read at certain times, but it's not you do that like on
Yeah, but every
TV.
every homicide detective knows you never do it on the scene. You know,
Right. Yeah.
you know.
Well, we want to make it a comfort thing. You don't want to do anything on the scene.
No, of course,
Bring the person back to the house, sit down, talk, and then and then you get, if Miranda is required, then you do it.
right, exactly. But
But
sometimes you see even cops they start thinking that the TV cops are the real cops. Like
yeah,
Monday, I'm having two detectives from Manhattan Special Victims on Police Off the Cuff, and I'm going through all this stuff, and I see just to make a flyer, and I see on Google, oh, the emblem from Manhattan Special Victims Squad, but it turns out it was from the TV show. I'm not using that
oh,
shit. Those are the TV cops. We have the real police.
the one thing everybody loves the TV cops.
Yeah,
They could beat people, get illegal confessions, hang people out windows and stuff, but everybody loves them.
right, exactly. They love
But
to
it's
see that
it's the
shit.
real cops they don't like.
Even Blue Bloods, the one guy who's the hard ass guy. I don't even know his name. I can't even watch it. He's so played out. That guy,
Yeah.
Donnie, what's his name?
Oh, Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy every day is always like this
Yeah.
hard ass guy. Okay, dude, we get it. You're tough, all right. But it
Yeah.
just like from doing real police work, that whole act doesn't work. You know,
No.
especially
Yeah.
if you're a detective, you got to be more, uh, you know, sort of more democratic than that. And you got to be able to talk to people and schmooze
Right.
people.
And that's the other, you used to get that from the defense attorneys. Isn't it true? You smacked my client, you called him a bad name, you beat him up. Yeah, I mean, here I am beating your client who could kick my ass, 6 ways to Sunday. Here I am beating him to make him tell me what I want to hear.
Right,
You
right,
First of all, it'd be the last thing you do is start, smacking a guy, around. That's a way to get him to cooperate and tell what a story, what happened. It's ridiculous. It's
Well, Mike, it's funny even when I was first, I made sergeant when I had 4 years, 10 months on the job. So
oh
I
wow,
I
right,
came up that way,
yeah,
anti-crime. I
yeah,
had already been in it, but I came the anti-crime sergeant, then the RIP sergeant, and then into the squad and all that other shit. But I didn't totally understand when I first got into doing investigation that you get way more out of schmoozing people
right,
than you do of being a hard ass. Because
right.
the guy who just committed the murder, he's not afraid of you. There's
No,
nothing you
no,
can say to him that's going to make ooh, 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 I'm
yeah.
scared. So you got to use your mind. You
Well, it
know.
was the same thing, even on a different scale. Was like when you stop people. If you stop, for whatever reason, if you stop a person, you don't have to throw them against the wall and smack them in the head and say something derogatory to them.
Right.
There's a nice way of stopping someone and tossing them even,
Yeah.
and,
Well,
and
I'll say something that I'm sure you heard a million times. After you stop them and they don't have anything, leave them with a good taste in their mouth,
yeah, yeah.
right? And that
And
was a thought.
especially where we work, they weren't most of the population, the guys there they were big on respect. They weren't receptive to being any real rough stuff,
Right.
unless it was and you guys from street crime or task force crime would breeze through now and then on whatever, and they used to have a hard time with that because we had more of a rapport with the local guys, and we knew people. We knew who they were. They called us by name, by nickname, or whatever.
Right.
We had that, and
I'm dying to hear what was your nickname, Mike?
I had a couple. Actually, one guys up in the '90s used to call me Chucky Boy. That from that
That's great.
dog, yeah. And then because I used to wear a baseball hat, my hair was a little longer, shaggy at the time.
Chucky boy, that's great.
So that and Blue Eyes was another name and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And but you know what? You knew the guys, and you know there was like I said, they talk about respect. It was like sort of a back and forth thing with that. So other guys
Did you
couldn't.
learn all the Rasta terms too, or what?
I'm sorry, what's that?
I said, did you learn all the Rasta terms, or what do they call it,
Yeah,
patois or something like that? Is that what it's called?
yeah, I could call. Well, you know, he picked up a lot of lingo along the way.
Yeah, because you'd have
Where,
to, right?
like a new guy would come in or whatever, and the guy would go, "All right, what happened? What happened?" Guy would go on for 5 minutes, and the other guy would be, you know, the guy you're standing next to would be like, "What do you say?" Oh, he said, you know, and you'd be able to, you know, pick it all up. He said, "Oh, he said he was walking down the street when a guy came around the corner with a gun and did this and shot this guy, and he ran away this way." And it's like I couldn't even understand what the guy was saying.
That's great.
Funny how you pick.
I had a detective in the 2-3 RIP, and he was from St. Thomas. And when he first came to the RIP unit, he would be talking to a complainant, and he would say, "How he look?" I used to think that was, rather than what did he look like, you go, "How
Uh,
he look?" And we would fucking die laughing. You
yeah,
know,
the funny stuff, you know.
yeah, it is funny. Yeah, that's why you talk the melting pot or the gorgeous mosaic, as Dickens used to say. That is now the police department. You know.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, I saw a bunch of chiefs just got moved around and stuff the past week. You know,
Yeah.
too. You
Oh
know,
yeah, Chief of Patrol is now
Holmes,
Holmes. Yeah,
Juanita Holmes.
yeah.
Yeah,
There was like 5 sisters that were all on the job.
yeah. You know, somebody. I mean, I don't know her. I don't think I've ever met her. I mean, she's been on for a long time, and but
Got
yeah,
30
I know
years.
she does have a big family,
Yeah,
uh, cops and stuff.
my sister used to work at the borough in
Yeah,
Manhattan.
I
Remember?
never remember running into her at all.
Yeah,
But yeah, well, everything changes. You know that. You know.
yeah. I mean, something. We started out talking about anti-crime and how important it is to keep crime down in the city, and I really, it's a different world of policing now. Body worn video, cell phones out there all over the place, videoing every single thing you do. This stupid, ridiculous diaphragm law, which is going to have to be reversed.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know who can be these days or how smart it is to be a proactive cop.
Well,
There's-
yeah, I know it's hard. You know, it's and I mean, what do you say? I mean, you know, you're gonna tell guys do nothing. You can't do nothing. You know, I
no.
mean, you know, we're cops no matter what. I mean, even when I was out on the street, you know, anti-crime or whatever. You know what it's like when you go out and you can't take a collar and your partner can't take a collar. How stressful it is.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, what do you do? You know, a guy goes by who's looking at, you know, he's giving you that deer in the headlight look or whatever. You know, you got something there, and you just got to try to turn your head the other way. It's a horrible feeling.
You have to avoid it. Yeah, it
It's
absolutely.
not, you know, or have a guy give you, a guy that should, by all means, you know, you should take him, but he's going to turn around and then grow a pair of balls and start giving you shit now.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
you can't live like that. You can't work like that.
No.
So, I mean, that's what I think these guys are up against today, you know, where they feel like they can't do things and they're going to sit there. And once somebody gets that feeling that this guy's not taking me, I'm going to
Well,
do what I want.
something, just even the verbal abuse I've seen them have to take,
Yeah.
to me is outrageous. Like, where isn't there something called disorderly conduct? Doesn't that come into play anymore? They can't use.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was, yeah, there was always this kind,
Yeah,
or obstructing,
yeah. It doesn't seem like
Always
they're
something.
allowed to use that anymore. I guess they must have changed that in the penal law. Oh no, they're allowed to curse you out now. Like
Yeah. Well, that and I know from what I've heard too, that the DA's office isn't even writing these cases up. Which I'd be like, we don't work for the DA's office. I don't care what they do. Somebody commits a crime, you take them, and that's it.
yeah, let them DP it.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? I mean,
I used to
we've
love
all.
when the
I mean,
DA's office would get pissed at you for not signing the DP. I'm not signing that.
yeah.
I had probable cause. I arrested him. That's your.
Oh, with the guns, they DP'd quite a few guns. I mean, over a number of reasons. They said, you'd have guys, whatever. Well, what happened? I was, stopped at a light. Guy came up to me, said, "Oh, that guy across the street's got a pistol." And you went and grabbed the guy, and he had a pistol. All right, well, where's the guy? Oh, I don't know. Well, is he going to testify? Oh, I'll ask him next time I see him. I mean, who is it? I'm not telling you who he is. You
Right.
know, Oh, we're throwing this case out. Oh, well.
Go ahead.
I pulled over a guy one time. He had a gun, where the registration and inspection sticker is, the gun's there, on the dashboard. He's like, oh shit. I didn't. And so I go to the DA's office, and the DA's like, oh, no one's ever going to believe that. Okay. How could somebody be so stupid and leave a gun on their dashboard? I don't know. I mean, but that's what happened.
Right, right.
So they
Sometimes,
DP it. So what do you do?
yeah.
There's a gun off the street, and but I mean,
And you got
what can
eight
you
hours
do?
overtime.
Yeah, you know,
Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, as they say,
yeah,
right?
I know. That's why I think they should have spent a little more time. Not that you want certain people riding around with you, but I think it has a purpose where it's been effective in the past. People like that, if they spent a little time with some cops, because why are we the way we are, Bill? Because we saw what we saw for
Yeah.
20, 30. Okay. We weren't like that. We didn't know anything when we got on the job. I don't care where you grew up. Okay. I don't care what your background is or what your race is, unless you really didn't know what went on.
No, you didn't. And you
And the
didn't know
more
the
you saw,
danger.
the more you did, you realize how screwed up things were. And that's the way we are now. We're not racist. We might be bigoted, for all the stuff that we've seen, but we're by no means racist. I mean, that's
No.
just the word everybody throws around.
Like you probably helped more black people than 50
Yeah.
politicians,
Yeah.
but
And
they,
I'm proud to say that, and you know what, I could ride through that neighborhood now and find a person that was there when I was there.
yeah,
And you know what? You're not gonna find too many people that turn around and say that guy's a scumbag. He did this, he did that.
right.
They're gonna speak highly. I mean, that was the thing. That was one thing I was always proud of. Was not only the reputation with other cops, but with people that lived there,
Yeah.
store owners, even bad guys. They used to send IAB down to central booking and ask questions like, "What happened?" Did you ever remember hearing stuff? They were doing that for a while.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
So I didn't have to worry about that stuff. Yeah, we had your guy one. Guy was a little bit off the rails and maybe made up some crazy story. I never had a gun. They wouldn't say nothing, but they wouldn't throw me under the bus. You know,
Right. Right.
which now you see these videos. A guy gets locked up with a gun. He spits in the arresting officer's face. I'm like, I don't think any of the baddest guys I ever ran into would ever even dream of doing something like that. Not because they get thrown down a flight of stairs, which they might, but it was more of a thing like, who would do that? You
I
what
think
kind
that
of punk,
something. I
what type
think
of
they're
punk does
emboldened,
something?
no, but I think they're emboldened by what
Yeah,
they're actually allowed to do these days. How much they're allowed to push the envelope,
right,
and they get emboldened by that, and also by the amount that cops are hampered from doing their job, from stupid laws like the diaphragm law, like catch
yeah,
and release with bail reform, like body worn video, uh, numerous things. Stop, question, and frisk, which, by the way, the department caused that themselves
right. They
by
did
by making that,
a numbers game, right?
a numbers game, exactly,
Yeah,
because they weren't satisfied where crime was down to a level that this is good, this is a very safe city. Once
right,
it reaches a certain level, to keep knocking it down, you have to be intrusive beyond
right.
the Bill of Rights. You know what I mean?
No, I know.
And they did that.
Yeah,
And Kelly may go down as one of the greatest police commissioners ever, but that's a stain on him and Bloomberg.
right.
They're the ones that pushed that.
No, you know what? Like we 250s were always there, and there was a log in the precinct, and like you said, if you drove the murders down from 2,500 to 400, you're probably not going to do much better now. In a city this big, there's no matter what type of police work you're doing, you really can't stop a man from killing his wife or shooting his girlfriend or vice versa. There's always going to be that element of domestic stuff or whatever.
Right,
But you could cut down on the random stuff and it's, the spontaneous crimes quite a bit.
right.
And yeah, no, they didn't know when to say when, and it ruined it. And you know what? Everybody tries to make that even a race issue. Um, but who complained? You know,
What do
did
you mean,
did
from the
no, who
youth,
complained about stop, question, and frisk? I
legitimate
saw people
people?
complain. I didn't see older black people complain.
Yeah,
I didn't see like old church women complain. I,
no,
I saw, who complained, you know?
I think it started being legitimate people that were coming home from
Right,
work, and it was such a numbers game that they were just stopping them. And
right.
like, I'm an attorney down on Wall Street. Why am I getting stopped and frisked?
Yeah, no, that was all wrong.
Yeah, it was wrong, and something. It was sort of ridiculous, but something. It made the active and the aggressive cops, the
Right,
crime cops, it made their job 10 times harder.
right.
You know.
No, it did. It was really looking back. I mean, I understand that it was a terrible thing because it really took an important tool, which is or it's actually law. Stop, question, and frisk is it's in the criminal procedure law what you can
Right.
do, what you can't do. And like you said, it became a numbers game. They stopped too many legitimate people in that, and they didn't know how to go about it the right way. Also, you know,
Well, you had captains with 10 years on the job ordering cops to stop
I
people.
know.
Like,
Like, well, give me 10, you have 250s.
yeah,
Something
exactly.
like that. And they're like, what? We didn't even know what they were stopping people for.
No.
And
Oh, and you also they couldn't articulate. It has to be done under reasonable suspicion. What were you? What was I reasonable suspicious about, Captain?
yeah, yeah,
That you told me to stop this guy?
right. And that's the thing. I mean, we stopped guys that times didn't have anything.
Yeah.
But you understood. All right, fellas, where you head, just whatever, going. Be careful, be safe. And most guys understood it. You got to realize everywhere you went in the neighborhood, you got stopped by somebody. You had to get buzzed into a store. You had to go to a metal detective in school. Everywhere you went to a party, they had some guy out there searching you. So I mean, it just was something that really had to be done. If you were decent, but like you said, you wouldn't run down John Q. Citizen and start harassing them or searching them for just because the job wants you to give a number. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Now you get news reporters saying stop and frisk, and I always say, oh, stop, stop. It's not called stop and frisk. Where'd you get that from? It's called stop, question, and frisk.
Right. Yeah, and
And I
sometimes,
said, and
and
the question
sometimes,
part is important because that may raise the level of suspicion
right? Yeah,
of the frisk, right?
yeah,
But news reporters, they just want to all say stop and frisk,
I know.
you know, because that's what they're taught to do because they're
Yeah.
anti-police.
Oh well, what can you do, right?
Well, Mike, we've been talking for again close, I don't know, pretty damn long time.
Oh, wow, it's been a while. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and I think we covered a lot of stuff. I mean, we both are mourning over the loss of anti-crime since we.
Yeah, well, you always go back to the basics, they say. So hopefully it comes around again, and
Yeah,
for
something.
the benefit of everybody, the police officers and the good, decent people who need uh, they need police officers like that out there.
Yeah, mostly the community needs
Yeah.
anti-crime. You know, it's as a career path for cops, it's also important. Patrol, anti-crime, RIP, detective
Yeah.
squad, that type of thing.
Right.
But mostly for the community, that they help keep people safe from the worst element in the community.
Right.
The gun carriers, the robbers, the assaulters on the street.
There's gotta be somebody between them and those type of people and
Yeah,
good working people.
or else everyone's going to be strapped, right?
Yeah. Then what?
Yeah, then what? Exactly. We got the Wild West. So, Mike, I just want to thank you. I mean, I think this is like your fourth time on this show.
Um, third.
Well, the first time you came on, we did 2 episodes,
Oh, okay. All right.
right?
Okay.
And then we spoke about the homicide case, the John Lennon case, right?
Yes. Okay.
And this, we're putting all this down so one day it'll be in a museum, you know?
Yes. Yes.
It'll be like someone coming, oh, Mike Hinrichs, let me play this. Oh, shit. This is some interesting.
Yeah. Sure. Down the road, hopefully, maybe my grandkids will get a
That's
kick.
right. They can watch it and say, hey, that was Grandpa. Look at that. This is some funny shit.
My grandfather was on from 30 to 50. I wish he would have lived long enough. Um, where I could like listen to stories and appreciate his
Oh,
stories. I'm
talking
sure they'd
about
be, right?
a different job back then, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh God, but so I just want to thank you for
Okay.
coming on, and
Well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate it.
it's great. I mean, we walk some of the same paths. I mean, I didn't
Yes.
do as much gunplay as you, but I was out there, and your stories are always fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, no.
Something I always think that one of the reasons when we started doing police off the cuff was like sort of to archive some of these great stories from the great
Yeah,
in the city history, and I think it should be done more.
I know.
Because these
Real
stories,
quick,
you know,
the 6-0, and I never, I don't know why I never thought of it, but the 6-0, the squad used to have an intel log, and they had like the old binders with a log of funny stuff and things that happened, and it was always like a little blurb, a little paragraph. I said, what a great idea to have that
that's
memorialized,
hilarious.
going back. Oh, this day so and so said what, this happened, that happened. It was great stuff. Could have sold that book. All
Well,
these,
yeah,
I
I mean, cop lore, just
know.
the stories. Like, I mean, we always say that term, oh, that guy's balls have been dipped in butter. Well, that was such a funny expression.
Yeah.
But if you say that to a cop, he knows exactly what you're talking about. That little fuck that drives the chief, his balls have been dipped in butter from day one. And
Well, you talk to other people and they look at it. Where do you come up with this stuff? I didn't come up with it. It's out there. It's been
yeah,
out. It's not me. I didn't.
hairbag. That's a
I
great
know.
term, hairbag, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's a million. Oh, that's a ground ball. Oh, that's a home run. All this
Yeah.
lingo. Cop lingo
That's,
is funny in itself.
I'd like to do a dictionary. That'd be,
Yeah, cop dictionary. Yeah, that you probably get it published somewhere. It'd be some,
and a perp dictionary would be pretty funny too. The
that was
I mean, we all do it, but the pronounced words or words that are supposed to be something else, like calibrating and corroborating.
or someone said, "I got Cadillacs in my eyes."
Yeah.
That's some funny shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, man. So listen, again, we could
All
keep
right.
talking, but I think it's time to go.
Okay.
So, Mike,
That's
again,
good.
thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
All right, but
And this
all
is
right, Bill.
episode number 8 of Real Crime Stories with retired detective first grade, Mike Hinrichs. God bless, Mike.
All right, Bill. Thanks again. I'll talk to you soon.
Good.
Take care. All right, bye.